Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to this Astrology, Human Design, and Gene Keys channel with me, Tan. And today we're going to be deep diving into Gene Key 32 or Human Design Gate 32, and that is the zodiac sign of Libra. If you're interested in getting a reading from me or my sister soul tribes for astrology, human design, or gene keys, then also head over to my website. Links are all in the description box below as well. And we'll see what we can offer you. We'd love to be your guides on your self-discovery journeys. All right. So as usual, we are going to begin today by looking at the overview of Gene Key 32 and Human Design Gate 32. If you're not familiar with the Gene Keys or even Human Design, then I have made an introduction video to what is the Gene Keys and what is Human Design. You can check out that video as well. I'll provide a link up above in the description box. Check it out and then come back and watch this video. Okay, so Gene Key 32 spans 45 degrees of Libra to 26 degrees of Libra in 22 minutes. It moves from the shadow called failure to the gift of preservation to the Siddhi of veneration, ancestral reverence. The dream arc vision keyword is the vulture. The life key animal is the reindeer, and the fear key underworld creature is the earthworm. In the codon ring, this gene key is located in the ring of illusion, and it's associated with the amino acid asparaginic acid. I hope I pronounced that correctly. In the 64 I Ching hexagram, this hexagram is thunder over wind, called duration. Grafting young sprouts to old trees, the transmission continues unimpeded. The programming partner of this archetype is Gene Key 42, Human Design Gate 42, and that's Aries in the zodiac wheel. So I highly recommend that you also check out the video for your programming partner, because that's going to offer a balancing complementary energy to the energies that we're seeing here. And in Human Design, this gate is located in the spleen via a channel called the channel of transformation or respect, moving from the shadow of disrespect to the gift of respect to the Siddhi of reverence. So very, very intriguing and very interesting indeed. And if you have this archetype, what I can say right away is that when we look at the symbolism of the vulture, you are somebody who does have that element of being able to value things that other people may not see or value anymore, or being able to really understand deeply the value of something. Considering that Libra is the sign that is ruled by Venus, and Venus does rule your sense of value, self-worth, self-esteem. And people who have this archetype are very good with investment, knowing what to invest in. And you will also be somebody who appreciates your ancestors, your family, and your roots, but also is also able to incorporate change and new things into your life. But of course, if you are in the negative energy frequency of this, you'll be somebody that's too stuck on your tribe, too stuck on the values of your family, that it's hard for you to bring change or bring something new into the old. So let's dive further into this archetype by looking first at the shadow. And the shadow here is called failure. I feel like the people have this archetype and they're kind of watching this, and you may be going like, oh my God, my shadow is failure. Does that mean that I'm going to be experiencing some kind of failure in my life at some point? The answer is yes, but you have to all move from the shadow, embrace the shadow to get to the gift in the Siddhi. But failure in this case that we're going to talk about today may not be what you think is the traditional meaning of failure. So this particular gate in Human Design is located in the spleen, like I've mentioned previously already. And the spleen in our body is the energy center that has to do with our intuition and our fears. Intuition and fears about what's good for us and what's not good for us. So right away, when it comes to this gene key, we are looking here at the fear of failure. This is the shadow energy here. And the fear of failure is one of the greatest fears of humanity, if you really think about it. Nobody in the world wants to experience failure. However, if we really dig into the fear of failure, we do find that your individual fears of failure is actually coming from the collective fears of failure to survive as a species. So in the past, in ancient times, we will notice that if human beings or animals of any species were sticking together in a group, and they moved in groups, they hunted in groups, they lived in groups, they had a better chance of survival. if one member of this group or this tribe was somehow isolated or ostracized in some ways and they had to be alone, their chances of survival becomes immediately threatened. So operating together in packs was considered to be safer. And this is one of the, we can say, fears of failures that have existed and what can be considered as success and failure that has been rooted within our human ancestral imprinting since the beginning of times. The second fear of failure that we also have is the fear of not being able to pass on your genetic material. And this is also, of course, related to survival as well, that your gene pools are not going to be passed on and survive. And this has also been existing in our culture for a really long time. So for a biologically female person, a woman, this fear of not being able to pass on her genetic pool leads her to look for a mate, to get pregnant, and to have kids. For a man, this is about passing on his genes. And, or if not able to do that, then there's a fear of infertility coming in. Nowadays, in the modern world, these types of fears are changed. They've shifted in their form, but they're still related to the past in some ways. Because nowadays, when you look at the world, we don't live in such a tribal environment as we did before, especially not in the West. There's, of course, going to be variations here and there depending on where in the world you're living. But there's a lessening of that tribal need to live in a tribe. So now the fear that we currently have when it comes to fear of failure is coming from, with regards to money, of course, not unpredictable. Because fear of failure here means in the modern world, not having enough money. And when you don't have enough money, this means that you may not survive. And survival is equivalent to, one, being able to pass on your genes, and two, not being isolated or ostracized. So you see how it's all coming back and it's all linked in some ways. And now in the modern world, it's being seen or being interpreted via money, but it still links back to that ancient ancestral fear. So if you're in the shadow frequency of this gene key, you are going to be a type of person who feels that the larger your bank account, the more chances of survival you have in the world, the less chance there is of failure. And this is how money has become one of the biggest symbols of success in the modern world. However, no matter how, when you're in this fear, no matter how much money you make, how many billions or millions you make, that old fear that existed since the past, it still exists within your body. Having more money doesn't make that fear of not being able to survive, of failure, go away. Because it's the fear itself that you have to be able to conquer with this shadow, not the money. Because the true concept of success with this gene key is about being able to not be ruled by the concept of success or failure anymore. It's to no longer be a victim of the concept of success and failure. This is true success. So in the shadow frequency of failure, you may be somebody who restricts yourself to, and you're kind of closed off and you restrict yourself only to your family or your friends, your clique, your social circles, your tribal circles, and you become a little bit stingy in your spirit, in your resources, and sometimes selfish as well. And if you think in terms of, just the survival of your own family or just the survival of your own world, you become disconnected from the earth. You will be isolated from earth and from Mother Nature. Because ultimately, you have not raised your consciousness enough to think in terms of the actual survival of your species, of our species, or of all living things on the earth. And we're all connected in some ways. So if only your family survives and the forest doesn't survive, the ecosystem in the forest won't survive. The animals in the forest won't survive. And then that will affect the air that we breathe, the environment that we live in, and comes back to us as human beings, not being able to survive as well. When you are, having these fears of failure, it's not that you shouldn't feel them. It's not possible. These are ancient fears. They exist within all of us, but it is about how you feel them within your body, but you don't react to them anymore. That's the key here. And when you are able to see beyond this superficial concept of success and failure, you will begin to feel connected. You will begin to feel that all life moves in a cosmic pattern. As you let go and live within this cosmic natural pattern, you will always find the support that you need. Money will always come to you when you need it. It always arrives when you surrender to the flow of life, just when you need it. So we can have two versions of the shadow. In the repressive version of the shadow, and you'll have both of these, they'll switch back and forth in your life. In the repressive version, this is what is called a fundamentalist. So fundamentalist, in this case, is an extreme form of conservatism. You are literally choking yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally in some ways. You are starving yourself from support from others who are not in your, we can say, tribe or your community. You're starving yourself off from the support and from the new perspectives of the entire world, and you limit yourself to only your community, your family, your ancestors, and you become a little bit paranoid about the rest of the world. We can also have the reactive version of this shadow, which is called disjointed. So this is when you lose sense of all continuity of life and you feel like you don't have any support, and you may even reject all kinds of support from other people. You think that there is nothing to support you except for yourself. You live a self-destructive life pattern and you cut yourself off from the source. And then you find that nothing ever really goes smoothly for you in this life. The decisions that you make, they don't flow or follow the natural cycles of things, and they never leads you to good health or wealth. So how can we move from the shadow of failure to the gift of preservation? And so Richard Rudd also calls the gift of preservation grafting. And so I will be explaining a little bit later on why he calls it grafting. The gift of preservation is really about not being selfish anymore, and you're focused on keeping things alive. But you're not focused on keeping everything alive. You know what to keep alive and what to let go of, what you need to allow to die and decay, and what is it that you need to keep alive. Once you can see beyond the fear-based thinking of success and failure, you're going to be somebody who's really has a gift of investment, because you can sense the long-term picture in all situations, and you have a deep capacity for restraint. But at the same time, you also have a deep capacity for taking risk. You are able to withhold your energy, your money, and your time from people and situations that are tempting and will give you instant gratification, because you don't see how they will benefit in the long term. So you can withhold yourself from that temptation. But at the same time, so you have that unflinching principle about you. But at the same time, you also understand that some things need to be updated, needs to be revolutionized, you need to somehow expand on your original investment. So when you think of the Libra archetype, you think of the scales. And the balance here of this scale is to be able to balance restraint with risk. And restraints are your principles. Risk is change, revolutions, and expansion. So yes, Richard Rudd calls the gift of preservation grafting, because when you are grafting, you're looking at a tree or a plant and you are cutting out what is maybe not needed. So I'm telling you this, I thought back about last year. I was planting tomatoes. I don't know if you guys have ever planted tomatoes. You will know that in order to get the fruit, the tomato fruit that you eat, you have to cut out some of the tomato flowers, and you will have like maybe up to 6 or 7 flowers in one stem. But if you keep all 6 or 7 flowers in that stem, you won't get the fruit in the right size, and it won't turn red, and it won't be big enough for you to eat it. So you have to cut out those flowers in that stem, so you're left with maybe just 2 flowers. and those 2 flowers, so you cut out like 6 or 7 to be left with 2. So all the energy from the tomato plant can go into developing those 2 flowers into ripe tomato fruits. So it's a little bit of like this energy here. You keep what you have the energy for, what is necessary. You cut out, you allow some things to die to keep something else alive. So there's this balance. It's really beautiful in its energy. So in real life, this means that you come to terms with what you really value in this life. What do you want to invest your time, your energy, your mind into in this life? And what is it from your past? Maybe it's from values of your family, values of your ancestors that is outdated for you, that you no longer value. What can you cut out? What can you keep? What new things can you bring in? So they call this gate in human design the gate of duration. And it's interesting that they call it this gate because there's a lot that we can discuss with regards to the word duration. Duration is seen as, so duration can mean that when something is last longer, it is considered success, right? That's the old mentality. That's the outdated mindset. If a marriage lasts 10 years or longer, it's successful. If you've been in a job for like 10 or 20 years, you're still successful. But you know that if you're not happy in that marriage or that relationship, if you're not happy in that job, if it's wasting away your energy, if you're not getting a return on that investment, if it's not in alignment with your values and you keep staying in it as long as possible, you don't allow parts of it to die or to decay or to change or allow that experience or that situation altogether to die or decay, then what's the point of it? Then you are just holding on to a concept of success and failure that is outdated, that is not valuable to this day and age, and maybe not even to you anymore. So something to really consider there, I think, because I know there's still like various different cultures out there that, you know, have this idea or have this mindset that if you're, you know, not 30 years old, if you're 30 years old and you're not yet married, especially if you're a woman, you know, you would be called like a spinster or something like that. Or if you don't have kids by a certain age, then you've completely failed. So these are things to reconsider, especially when you have this gene key in your chart. Like, does it really matter to you? And a really good way of recognizing if something really matters to you or not is to get in touch with your spleen, with your intuition. Does it strike fears within your body? Does it strike paranoia within your body? Or does it feel calm, like you can trust the universe? If things are happening in your life, if the decisions that you have to make, they come with a sense of everything's going to be okay. I can surrender to the universe to make these decisions and the universe will support me. That's right for you. If you have to make a certain decision in your life because there's a paranoia that if you don't, so is going to happen, that is a fear. That is a wrong way to make decisions. So Richard also describes with this gift of preservation here that nature is the rootstock. You know, when you're grafting, nature is the rootstock and humanity is the new shoots, the new buds that are booming out of this, because humanity is striving for this transcendence through the new things that humanity is doing through technology and so on and so forth. But we still can combine that technology with the knowledge of our ancestors that is at the root. So combining those two things is very, very beautiful here. The gift of preservation means that you also understand who will be a good ally in your life and who will not. You have a natural ability and instinct to sense who you should invest your time in and money and effort in, who you should not. You also have the gift of not just seeing relationships between individuals, but to see the interrelationships between many different people as well. So let's move on to the Siddhi of Veneration, which is also beautiful. It's like the vulture energy here. And like I mentioned in all of my Jinky videos, I don't want to talk too much about the Siddhi because the Siddhi is a state of being that will dawn upon you once you are in the frequency of the gift. The Siddhi is a divineness that will just dawn upon you. And it's a state of enlightenment, we could say. And Richard Rudd calls the Siddhi of Veneration the perfume of consciousness. And remember how the vulture finds carcass through its sense of smell. And here it's the perfume of consciousness. So I really like the relationship that's being made here. So veneration is when you're able to see your place and where you stand within this greater chain of life and of all living things. You see the spiral of evolution. You can see who's above you in the spiral of evolution and who is below you in the spiral of evolution. So who's more evolved and who's less evolved, and that everybody is going up the spiral of evolution. And you see this and you experience a sense of wonder. You understand the interdependence of all of life. Richard Rudd says that those who are in the Siddhi of veneration have always incarnated into this earth in some form of spiritual lineage. And the spiritual lineage is not a genetic one, but it's more of a archetypal one. So it's more of like your fractal line. And this has more to do with the vibration that you're in rather than the actual genes that you came from. So if you're in the same vibration as somebody else, you will immediately be drawn to each other. And that is when you know you have found somebody who's come from the same fractal line as you into this earth. What you truly venerate is the chain of evolution itself. You see whose shoulders you're standing on in order to evolve and who's standing on top of you. And you also allow people to come up and stand on your shoulders and you help them to evolve when you see that it is time for them to evolve, and we help each other in this way. So Richard Rudd describes that in the physiology of gene key 32, it represents the liquid in your body. And as you know, that water, we are made up 80% water, and water holds memory. So water is the medium through which our collective consciousness evolves. And when somebody or some animal, maybe even plants, die, they release water back into the water cycle. The hydrogen atoms in the vegetables that you eat, they pass through your body and they leave through your urine more evolved than when they entered your body. So it's so cute that he describes this as digestion being the key to our evolution. Because water is constantly being cycled. It holds that memory of where we're going, how we're evolving. Don't forget to drink a lot of water after watching this video. So I'm going to end with a quote that Richard Rudd says about veneration. The more you contemplate this 30-second Siddhi, the more reverence you will inevitably feel for all life. As it penetrates deeper and deeper into your heart, you will begin to smell the divine perfume of consciousness as it moves between and behind all forms of life. So that's going to be the transmission of Gene Key 32 for you guys today, Human Design Gate 32. If you have this particular archetype, then do comment below and share with us your experiences of it. I love reading all your comments and all your experiences. If you like this video, then do give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. If you already subscribed, then thank you very much, beautiful souls, for coming along on these astrology, human design, gene key journeys. I appreciate you all so much. If you like the effort, the content that I'm putting out here on this channel, then also go ahead and give me a super like. This is a really interesting feature here on YouTube. It's hidden in the tabs below the video. I would really, really appreciate a super thanks. A super thanks. And if you're interested, of course, in a reading, then head over to my website. Links in the description box below as well. Me and my sister soul tribes would be more than happy to do a reading for you guys. And that's it for today. Sending everybody lots of veneration. Bye.